Has Modi's silence let down Indian foreign policy?
Well, I certainly believe it has. And as I said, this was a long time in the coming. This is not something that's happened suddenly, and that things have developed very fast, and we don't seem to know what to do and what to say. I think we've been in this difficult position for a very long time.
The US-Israeli strikes on Iran began early on Saturday morning. Barely 36 hours before that, Prime Minister Modi was in Israel, and he went at a time when the whole world was speculating that America and Israel were poised to attack Iran. And they did so literally 36 hours after he left. How do you view the timing of his visit?
Well, I think you couldn't be more short-sighted than that. I think you couldn't be more feeble-footed than that, etc. Any government, any prime minister, any head of state would have thought 100 times before taking a step like that, no matter you were sympathetic or your views were favorable towards the country that you were visiting.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Even 3 days after it happened, India has failed to criticize the US-Israeli strikes on Iran and the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei. This is despite the fact that the strikes breached the United Nations Charter, and major BRICS countries like China, Russia, Brazil, and South Africa have all spoken out critically. Yet India has been critical of Iranian strikes on the UAE and Bahrain. Writing in the Indian Express, Sonia Gandhi has said this is not neutrality, it is abdication. Joining me now is former Foreign Minister and former Law Minister Salman Khurshid. Salman Khurshid, the Modi government has deliberately kept silent about the killing of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, even though virtually 48 hours have passed. How do you view that silence?
Well, it doesn't surprise me one bit, frankly. I think we've been maneuvering ourselves into a very uncomfortable position in the world. We've given up any sense of values in our foreign policy. We've given up any sense of principle in our foreign policy. Very sporadic manner in which we are handling relations from time to time, etc. This was bound to happen. This started with what was happening in Europe. It started with what's happening with Russia. It's now happened with what's happening with Palestine and Gaza, and now it's come to Iran. Now, I think the problem is that we've placed ourselves in such a situation with the entire churning global position that we find it very difficult to say anything, and therefore I'm not surprised at all.
The killing of Ayatollah Khamenei is a clear breach of Article 2.4 of the United Nations Charter. It's also a break with India's own well-established tradition of speaking out and taking clear, defined positions in the interests of our own strategic autonomy. Has Modi's silence let down Indian foreign policy?
Well, I certainly believe it has. And as I said, this was a long time in the coming. This is not something that's happened suddenly, and that things have developed very fast, and we don't seem to know what to do and what to say. I think we've been in this difficult position for a very long time. And I do wish that he had consulted with some people in the opposition, certainly with the Congress party. We've had some experience of difficult things in the world in the past. We've always had them along our side whenever in the past we've dealt with difficult conditions when we were in government. But they've seemed to have decided they want to do everything on their own. And this is what they're having to now face. I'm afraid it's a very, very unfortunate position for us as a country, as a people.
Now, as you know, Iran is a fellow member of BRICS. Other major BRICS countries like Russia, China, Brazil, and South Africa, all of whom are founding members of BRICS like India, have spoken out and criticized the US-Israeli strikes as well as the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei. India's silence makes it the exception. How do you think BRICS will view India's silence? After all, the BRICS summit is scheduled to be held in India later this year.
Well, precisely, if you don't have a clear foreign policy, then you're going to be caught on the wrong foot from time to time. This is, as I said, something that's going on for a long time. And we've thought that we've enjoyed the best of two worlds. We take whatever we think is to our advantage and forget about the rest. But that's not how foreign policy works. And today, I think that it's very, very unfortunate that whether people say it specifically or they don't say it, they don't articulate it, but there are big, big thoughts and big doubts about our country's position. Specifically on the issue of values, we've given up values completely. There is no sign of values in our foreign policy positions. I don't call it foreign policy as such. It's just positions that we take periodically from time to time.
The paradox, Salman Khurshid, is that whilst India is completely, and I would add deliberately, silent about the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei, the Prime Minister has criticized Iranian strikes on Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Bahrain. He's spoken with the President of the UAE. He's spoken with the King of Bahrain to express his concern. What do you make of that?
Well, I have no issue about taking a position which is empathetic or sympathetic to various of our friendly countries in the Arab world. I have no issue there at all, and we shouldn't have. But the fact remains that it takes two to tango, and we have to talk to everyone. We have to talk to the Arab countries generally. We have to talk to Iran. We have to talk to all our friends. And I think that's the biggest failing, that we are not doing that. We just don't have the courage to speak to friends. And what is friendship for if you can't speak for them and you can't speak to them? This is the important factor.
And India has what we often call a civilizational relationship with Iran. It goes back centuries, maybe millennia. We have had very close links. We have interests in Chabahar port. Are we not, in a sense, endangering all of that by keeping conveniently silent at a moment when Iran would look to India's friendship to speak up on its behalf?
Well, I mean, there are practical and pragmatic issues that we are obviously letting go of completely. But I think that this is a much larger issue. It's much more than what you stand to gain or what you stand to lose. I think it's about what kind of world you want to live in. And there is a major, major question mark on the world of tomorrow and for the world that will be inherited by our children. And I'm afraid that we are letting down our children of tomorrow.
Let me put to you at this point two possible reasons why India has deliberately chosen to keep silent both about the US-Israeli strikes on Iran and, more importantly, about the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei. One presumes that one reason India is silent is because the Modi government doesn't want to offend and annoy Trump. Given the troubled relationship we've had with America for the last 12 months, is that understandable or is that just political convenience?
No, it's been understood. It's understood that this is political convenience at its best. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we should not have good relations with the US, but the US and the present administration is making it very difficult for us to have good relations with them. We would still want to carry on with good relations, but at what cost? At what cost to our reputation? To what cost to our principles? To what cost to our conscience? That's the big question. And I think that question has been plaguing us for quite some time. It plagued us when we were told to switch off with our relations with the with the Russian Federation. It got under question when we were sought by Ukraine to try and get to speak to the Russian counterparts. It became a problem when we remained silent when what was happening in Gaza, and now, of course, this is the peak of all these things that have swelled up in the last few months.
So all of this is happening at our cost to our conscience. That's what you said.
If we have one, certainly, but obviously the nation has a conscience, and if this is a cost to our nation's conscience, then this is the biggest cost that we've paid since democracy was accepted in our country as the way of life.
A second possible reason for India's deliberate silence is the criticism we heard from Ayatollah Khamenei when the Babri Masjid was demolished in 1992, and again when Article 370 was abrogated and Kashmir reduced to Union territory status. Again, is that understandable or is that inexplicable?
No. I think it's perfectly correct that you may disagree with something that a friendly nation decides to advocate at a particular time, but then you explain to them why we take a position that we take a position. The point cannot be that if someone is taking a position that may well be consistent with their ideology, that you will not have friends with them. You will not be friends with them at all. We've chosen to remain friends. And if we've chosen to remain friends, then we must continue to behave like friends. You can't switch on and switch off friendships like we seemingly are doing. That's quite simple. Friends don't always agree on everything, and we disagreed with them. We disagreed with other countries as well. We disagreed with the United States of America. But friends are friends. And I think that's what we need to understand, what friends are for.
Writing in today's Indian Express, your party leader Sonia Gandhi has said, and I'm quoting her, the government's silence on the killing of Iran's leader is not neutrality, it is abdication. What would you say if the government were to respond to Sonia Gandhi and say it's not abdication, it's more accurately pragmatism and carefulness?
Well, they're very good at using words, but if pragmatism means this, if pragmatism means that you give up principle completely and entirely, I know that foreign policy will always have an element of pragmatism, but you give up pragmatism, you give up principles to the extent that it's only pragmatism, then you have no foreign policy, frankly. Now, I believe what our leaders have done and what particularly Srimati Sonia Gandhi has said and written, I believe is a clear signal of compassion and courage. There are very few examples of such compassion and courage and commitment in the world today.
Tell me, you're a politician, you have your finger on the pulse. How would the Indian people view the Narendra Modi government's silence on the Israeli-US strikes on Iran, their silence on the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei? How would they view that? Would they say that this is the right course of action for India to take given the relationship we have with America, which is troubled, or would they say this is bizarre?
Well, I think people are far more principled than governments are, to tell you frankly. And our people have a conscience. Our people, of course, they have agreed with many things that Mr. Modi has done in terms of policy decisions. But I do believe that the goodwill that Mr. Modi has and his government has with the people of India is being shared very fast, very steadily, and very fast, etc. And you would find that apparent not in any particular segment alone, but by people generally in the country.
The paradox again is that we believe that the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and the Field Marshal of that country, Asim Munir, have become puppets in the hands of Trump. Yet they have been critical and outspoken both about the US-Israeli strikes and the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei. We, on the other hand, are silent. What do you make of that comparison?
Well, I think it's never very good to compare ourselves with Pakistan. I think we're in a different league altogether. There will be times, perhaps, when things will dictate us to be in the same direction. There will be times when we will be in entirely different directions. So there may be an overlap right now, but I don't think that there is any fundamental dimension in which we can agree with them or that we can be empathetic to what they're saying or doing.
Let me raise one more issue with you. The US-Israeli strikes on Iran began early on Saturday morning. Barely 36 hours before that, Prime Minister Modi was in Israel, and he went at a time when the whole world was speculating that America and Israel were poised to attack Iran. And they did so literally 36 hours after he left. How do you view the timing of his visit?
Well, I think you couldn't be more short-sighted than that. I think you couldn't be more feeble-footed than that, etc. Any government, any prime minister, any head of state would have thought 100 times before taking a step like that, no matter you were sympathetic or your views were favorable towards the country that you were visiting. And I think they just have to learn from their own past. Look at what Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee did when China and Vietnam clashed. He was in China when that happened, and he took the first flight back to India. So let them learn from the example of their own leaders if they don't want to learn from us.
You've been foreign minister. You would know better than anyone that the diplomats and the senior foreign service officers would have clearly advised Mr. Modi against the timing of his visit. They would have pointed out that this is an inopportune moment to go. If you go at this moment, it'll look as if you're endorsing what at that moment people thought Israel was about to do. Clearly, he would have disregarded their advice.
Well,
is that a terrible mistake?
It's one or the other. It's either his having disregarded their advice or that he's surrounded himself with people from that corps, from the diplomatic corps, who did not give him that advice. Now, we don't know exactly what happened, but the outcome is certainly completely unacceptable and indeed somewhat distressing and somewhat troublesome.
My last question. Would you say that the entire handling of Indian foreign policy over the last 5-6 days, the timing of the Prime Minister's visit to Israel, the silence when on Saturday the Israelis and the Americans struck Iran, the silence when it was confirmed on Sunday that Ayatollah Khamenei had been killed, would you say this is a particularly low point for Indian foreign policy?
Well, I think it's just not only 5 days. I would stretch it for 5 years, perhaps more. I think that the decline has been steady. The decline has been coming. It's been dressed up in various ways, in various forms of leadership given to the world, etc. But I think the decline of our foreign policy has been steady and for a while. And this is just the final occasion on which we can stand there and say, my God, can it get any worse?
So Modi has made India look small and feel small.
Well, he thinks that we look big, but hugs and kisses are not everything about foreign policy. Ultimately, it's what happens on the ground and what happens with your friends. Who is our friend? Who stood up for us during Operation Sindoor is a big question. And who is our friend today is another big question. Well, if we have friends, let's reach out to them. And we must learn to tell friends if they are wrong. We must learn to understand what friends mean and what friends expect and desire. And we must have the courage to stand up and do it.
And you know, because you were deputy foreign minister at the time, in the early 1990s, when the case against India was going to be taken up over the Kashmir issue by the United Nations in Geneva, Iran came to our defense at that moment of time, and it was Ayatollah Khamenei's Iran that came to our defense. Now, when Iran perhaps would look to us for similar response and a similar support, we failed them.
Well, I certainly think, and it's very distressing for those of us who've dealt with people across the borders, who've dealt with leadership across the countries. We've had disagreements, we've had hesitations, but we've never rejected them, and they've never rejected us. We've been friends. And today, I ask myself this question: do they still consider us friends? Big question.
Salman Khurshid, thank you very much for the time you've given me. Thank you very much for doing this interview. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.